I'm Sarithri, and I like to collect trash. Okay, well, more specifically, this is a giant cauldron full of bubble wrap. Because I get a lot of packages and I hate wasting packaging material, so I hoard it all in the event that I'm ever going to send anything either. More importantly for this video, I also save an awful lot of styrofoam. You get these a lot in like flat pack furniture, and after the move I've been buying a lot of that, so I have some styrofoam. And one of the things I've been seeing lately is cross stitches finished on styrofoam blocks. Now this is a much bigger block than I need. I'm gonna cut it later, but here's the general idea. You got a cross stitch, you pin it on a styrofoam block that fits better, and then you pin some fabric on the back and you tie a big bow on it, and it's gonna be cute. You'll see. So the idea is to cut this styrofoam block in half. Use one half for this adorable little mushroom froggy. The other half for this cute little mushroom snail. And then back both of them with this nice green fabric that I think will work perfectly with both of them because it kind of matches the greens used in the ferns. How does that sound? Let's do it together. By the way, if you want to stitch either of these patterns, this mushroom snail or the frog that you're going to be seeing in this video, they're both available on my Etsy. So first, let's talk about materials. Obviously, you're going to need a styrofoam block. You can buy these in like craft stores, but you can also just get them from packages that happen to involve styrofoam. So if you have some on hand already, great. If not, go buy some. You need your cross stitches. Duh. You also need some sort of backing fabric. Here I'm using like a quilting cotton. And lastly, you need a whole lot of pins. Not this many, but you do need a fair amount of pins. Now, I have these on hand because a few years ago I did Christmas ornaments. I will have one on screen here probably. There's a tutorial on my website on how I made those. They're really fun to make. But yeah, they just require straight pins. You can get the official Dritz ones. They're called Satin Pins. Or you can get them really cheap in these large buckets that some of them will be bent and some of them, like the top, will be sheared off or something. They're not great, but for the quantity, it doesn't matter if a few are kind of dumb. So, oh, and the last thing you need is like ribbon or cording or something decorative to go around it. But we'll get to that in a moment. If your styrofoam block is not the exact size that you want for your stitch, you might need to cut it. I'm using a bread knife because that's what I have on hand. So there you have it. We have styrofoam, cross stitches, fabric, pins, maybe a knife. Let's start by cutting this to size. So because I have two cross stitches that I want to have essentially the same finish, I'm going to cut this in half. I did measure, and I think if I cut it in exactly half, we should have the right amount of room for both. So this is about 9.5, which means math. It'd be like 4 3/4 is the halfway point, right? And 4 3/4 will give us just a tiny bit of breathing room on the side. It's going to be close, but I think it will be fine. Yeah. What would 4 3/4 be? Always measure first and make sure you're going to have enough room. 9.5, 4 3/4, halfway point's about here-ish. I'm going to have to mark it anyway, so I might as well now. And I think that way it will be right about here. We'll probably put it bottom heavy since it's a little close on the edges, and we can just have sky up above. It's fine. See? And make sure that the other one fits because I think it's a little wider. Oh yeah, no, there's plenty of room. Okay, that's perfect. One thing to note, if you have thinner sheets and you want a more square-like finish, you can actually glue these together and then cut them to size. That way you have a thicker piece. If you bought craft sheets at the store, a lot of times they're not super thick, so that's an option if you want a more boxy finish. Now that we've made sure we have enough room for both of our cross stitches, if we cut this exactly in half, I'm going to use my bread knife to cut it in half. I'm going to mute it so you don't have to listen to the awful, awful sound of styrofoam being cut. Trust me, you don't want it. Measure it out and make sure that you're cutting down vertically. You don't want to slant, otherwise it's not going to be a square. Okay, that was awful. I'm glad you were listening to some gentle music instead. Okay. Let's once again test to make sure we have enough room for our stitches. Oh yeah, look at that. It's perfect. Okay. I'm going to save the mushroom snail for later because I'm going to take step-by-step photos instead of video and put them up on my blog, because I always try to put text-based tutorials out for this sort of thing, because there's always a lot of videos out there but not many text-based tutorials, and some people, like myself, learn better from text and photos. So if that's you, head on over to my blog. I will link it down below, and there's dozens of tutorials on how to finish your cross-stitch projects on there already. For the video, I'll be working on Mr. Froggo. Look how grumpy he looks. Now, before I get to pinning, I want to measure and cut my backing fabric. Now, there's two parts that we'll need. First, we'll need a square that goes around the box like this, and then a strip that goes around the entire perimeter. So, we need to measure a piece that is twice as thick as our cube. Here I have 2 cubes, so I can just put them together. But you can just measure if you only have the one. But it needs to be twice as thick because we're going to fold it up so that none of the edges are bare. We also need it to be long enough to go all the way around the cube, plus about an inch or so, so that there's an overlap. So let's measure real quick. We need it to be, where's my, yep. We need it to be about 6.5 inches wide, and sorry for the styrofoam noises. There's not much I can do while doing a styrofoam craft. Okay, so 6.5 by, let's say, 21.5. Let me write that down. 21.5, so that there's a little overlap. And then twice the edge, so 3 1/4, 6.5. Now this particular piece of fabric is a long thin strip. Is it long enough on one side to go straight across? Nope, it is 19, which means it wouldn't quite reach all the way around. We'll which unfortunately means I'll have to go lengthways. But that is okay. If I do a full strip, do I have enough? There's some selvage. The selvage doesn't matter since we're going to be overlapping it a bit anyway. Ooh. The full length of this and folded in half is 22.5. So that gives us an extra inch or so. So I might just fold this over because I'm doing 2 cubes, so I'm gonna need 2 of these anyway. So I need a long strip, and just to be sure, if I do a full 6.5, which just happens to be the exact width of my ruler, everything's just coming together, huh? Do I still have enough fabric left over to wrap around the front? Yeah. Oh yeah, it's gonna be plenty. I actually didn't have fabric for this until this weekend. I went to this lovely little secondhand craft store, which had just an absolutely amazing selection of donated fabrics at ridiculously low prices. Like, I paid a total of $50 and I got all of this. I will show haul pictures on here. But yeah. So first thing I'm gonna do is square off the edge because it's a little jaggedy, as you can see. And since we're going for 6.5, and that just happens to be the exact width of my ruler, I can just do both sides at once and work my way down. Let me know how you like my new filming setup, though. I got one of those boom arms with a ring light, and I think it's working. I don't hate it, at least. The bar kind of gets in my way, but it's not too bad. Ooh, might be time to change out my rotary blade. It's chewing. Folks, change your rotary blades. This is your reminder to change your blades. Whatever, it's close enough. This should be enough to wrap all the way around and a little bit. Oh yeah, that's perfect. Look at that. Yep. And we're going to be folding it in, and that should give us the width. So it'll be perfect. Which means I just need to cut this in half. What I'm going to do is just trim off the tiniest bit of that fold. It's easier than trying to get scissors out and chewing along the seam, and it's fine. Like I said, I don't mind the selvage there because there's going to be that overlap and you're not going to see it. But now I have 2. I'm going to set one aside for the other one. And now we need our front panels. Now I have an even thinner long strip of fabric. And we need just enough to wrap all the way around. So as you can see, this already wraps in a fair amount. You want your cross stitch to fold in at least a little bit. It doesn't quite have to be this much, but you want at least like 1/2 inch. So you always want to leave plenty of extra room around your design for these kinds of finishing techniques. I have a little bit more on the top and bottom than I do on the sides, but that's okay. So I need to measure. Where's my measuring tape? How am I constantly losing it? I need to measure from somewhere overlapping the fabric. It doesn't have to go all the way to the edge, but you want to at least overlap the cross stitch by 1/2 inch. I'm going to do 3/4 inch just to be safe. And we're going to measure all the way around. It slid. Okay. So I need about 11 inches wide. Let's write that down. And then do our top to bottom. Let's do a full inch that way because I'm feeling generous. 11. We can do 11 by 10 to make it even, or we could probably get away with 9.5. Let's say 9.5. Because I want plenty of this pretty green left over for other projects. How wide is my leftover strip? About 12. I probably want to do the thickest side here, so we'll do 11 by 9.5 and 9.5. All right. Since there's only going to be a tiny bit left over, I might just leave it at 12 and just chop 9.5. Again, the selvage is going to be hidden, so I don't mind including it because I like using every last bit of fabric, but you do not have to include the selvage if you prefer not to. I've never been given a legitimate reason to not incorporate the selvage in my projects, but that's just me. So what do you say, 9.5, and then I'm just going to do the full 12. Yeah. You can see that I have 2 ring lights on this so that it's properly lit for you, because previous videos weren't super well illuminated. You're welcome. Okay, let's test that. So if we put this cube here, and we put Froggo here, what a cutie, right? Oh, look at that. That folds up and covers. Oh yeah. It's actually a little bit too long. It overlaps onto the front, so I'm gonna trim off. What did we say originally? 11. So about an inch should be sufficient off of it. Which side do I like least? This side's the wonkiest, so let's trim that off. I didn't really bother squaring this one off just because, you know, it's fine. Actually, I'm gonna go ahead and actually fully trim it to 11 because if I trim it to an inch, I won't have enough room to use this little strip of fabric for these cute half-inch hexies. But that little strip, it doesn't seem like much, but I can use it in English paper creasing projects. These are all half-inch hexies, right? So I want enough to be able to wrap it over on both sides, and if I do just an inch, it won't quite be enough. So that's why I'm trimming it a little close to save every last scrap of fabric I can. So yeah, even something this tiny can be used for other projects. Those are going to be so cute. Okay. Let's make sure that's still enough to wrap around. Boop, 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 boop. Perfect. Okay, let's make another one for my snail. One last thing I did off camera, because watching me cut fabric repeatedly is boring, is cut 2 squares of cotton batting that are the size of the front and back of my break. This isn't strictly necessary, it is an optional step, which is why I didn't include it with the materials. But if you want a little bit extra padding, some people use multiple layers of batting just to have it more plush. That's up to you. But I did that off camera for you. Now, let's get to pinning. How's my camera battery doing? 24%. We'll see how it goes. First, I'm going to take my cotton batting that I cut to size, and I'm going to pin it in place so that it does not wiggle around. I'm just going to do the corners. Boop. I'm going to layer my cross stitch and take some time to measure it and make sure it's centered and so forth. When ready, I'm going to pin all 4 sides. Oh, that one's bent. Okay. Boop. Boop. You may want to measure to make sure that it is equal on both sides. So we're looking at about 5/8. About 5/8 from that fern. And the top and bottom are a little tight. Top and bottom is about 1/4 inch. 1/4 inch. Maybe move it a little bit closer to the bottom. We also want to make sure that the bottom is straight, so it should be the same, roughly 1/4 inch all the way along the bottom. Good. Should be about straight. Now, let's get to pinning. I'm going to start by doing the corners. So I'm going to pull from the top, stretch it down so that it's flat, and then take this corner and pull it up towards the edge. And I'm going to pin, not my finger, pin it down. There should be a triangle of fabric here. You can pin as much or as little as you feel that you need to, but we want a nice straight corner. So we're going to do the same, always pulling down towards the sides of the cubes so that your top and bottom are nice and flat. And we're going to pinch and fold that corner up. Now this is the same technique I use when doing my plastic canvas, my stretched canvas finishes, and I will link that video and tutorial down below if you'd like to do that. Once I have both the top corners done, I can pin the top a little bit more just to make sure that it stays in place without wiggling around too much. Again, however many pins you feel that you need so that it feels sturdy. Don't want too many pins, or you don't want to push them down too far because they're going to dimple like this, and you can kind of see from the front that it wobbles. So you can loosen them a bit. I have seen some people take like cardstock or like comic book board and do a layer of comic book board so that the top is flat. But I don't think it's absolutely necessary. If you do want it to be extra straight though, that is an option. Once again, I'm folding the corners in towards the sides of my project, pinning them in place. you want to focus on the corners because most of this side is going to be covered up. The corners would be visible from the front, so that's the part that you want to make look tidy. This side can be as neat or as messy as you want. Okay. Try not to stab yourself in the process by rushing through it because you've already filmed this once, but your camera died. Let's not talk about it. Anyway, what is this pattern? We've got one, two, whatever. I'm gonna maybe do the edges here a little bit. Where it goes out. That's fine. So you have your froggo, or whatever you stitched, nice and straight. Let's do the other side. Once again, I'm doing my thin layer of cotton batting. This batting is absolutely optional. Straighten out. And then we'll do our layer of cotton fabric backing. Now if you have a directional pattern like stripes, or you have some sort of design that needs to be right side up, make sure that you're both making sure that it is right side up and that it's straight and not like tilted slightly, because it will bother you in the future if it doesn't right now. Just like before, I'm going to pin the center of all four sides just to hold it in place. You want to make sure that all sides overlap the cross stitch. That one overlaps a little bit more than this side, so let's actually take those pins back out and recenter so that it's a little bit more even. Maybe down a bit. It doesn't have to be exact since the side's going to be all covered up, but neither do you want it to be off balance. Pin them down once again. Do the last minute check. Again, make sure that whatever side this is right side up, that the other side of the block looks like it's right side up. This pattern doesn't matter because it's, you know, leaves and stuff, but if you had something that has the right side up, make sure that it is. I have made that mistake in the past and I'm just trying to help. Now, just like we did with the cross stitch, we're going to fold in our sides and pin them down. I know I make it look easy. It will absolutely be awkward the first few corners that you do. That is okay. The good thing about this technique is that if you ever want to take this off and, let's say, frame it instead, or turn it into something else, change the fabric on the back, swap out ribbons, whatever you want to do, these are just pinned in place. So you can easily take, this pin's not sharp, you can easily take all the pins back out and reuse this fabric for something else. It is not permanent. So if you have to do your corners and redo them multiple times to get them to look just fine, that's okay. It'll become easier with practice. going back around and pinning those to the side. Cool, so now we have a box. The edges probably look a little bit wonky, but that is okay. Now let's prepare this edge fabric. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is fold this in half. And I'm going to iron this to make a fold. Now, I don't have a good way to film ironing without moving my entire setup and then having to set it back up over here. So, you know what ironing looks like, probably. Just iron the edge. I'll be right back. Okay. So you have it ironed in half. It should be the width of your fabric, or of your cube. Mine is a little bit wider than it should be, but that's okay. We have that. Now, we could just use that, but you're going to have this like raw edge on the side, so instead we're going to open it up, and now that you have this nice iron seam that the camera doesn't want to pick up, but is very visible in person, I promise, you're going to fold the fabric into that center seam. And you're going to go iron this seam. And fold this side in. Right, so you're folding both ends into the middle. And you're going to go iron this again so that it saves this fold, and to iron out the crease that we made earlier. Okay, I'm going to go iron. Okay, so now you should have a piece of fabric. Fold it in so that it's twice thick. That just happens to be the width of your cube, right? Which means you're going to have a nice clean edge on both sides. Now, starting from the bottom of your cube, you're going to pin it in place. I don't go all the way to the corners in case I want to make little feet for my cube. These pins are not going to be visible, but they will be on the other side. So now we're going to carefully wrap this around. I don't pin these in place, that way I don't have to see the pins, but if you feel like you have to, if you pin it along the center, you can cover it up with a ribbon or a brick rack or something else. All right. So now that we've wrapped all the way back around and past our original seam, we're going to pin this in place, and this ended up being right about center. It doesn't have to be, it could be off to one side. It's the bottom. It is rarely seen, and no one is going to judge you for it. So we pin that in place. And we have a finished cube. It's a cute little cross stitch that can stand up on its own. This could be that maybe that's all you wanted, is a cube to sit on your shelf, or maybe you want to decorate it a little bit. Now, I don't know if this is going to be the ribbon I use forever. I tried to find some ribbon that would match at that craft thrift store that I went to, but I didn't find anything. I do have this white ribbon. I don't know if it goes well with it. Let's see. I'm just gonna make a loose little bow. Does that work? I don't know. It's not perfect, but I think it could work. And like I mentioned, this technique can be easily swapped out. It doesn't have to stay this ribbon. I can always swap it out in the future. I'm just going to tie a very loose bow just so I can see what it looks like. Yeah, I don't like it. I'm going to try to find a new ribbon. What is happening? Oh no. Okay, well I gotta completely redo that. That's fine. Yeah, I don't really have any good ribbon that would go with this. This would go perfectly with this, but I feel like it would just get lost in the fabric. Like, you know what I mean? Like it just blends right in. So I don't know if that would be, ideally I would have like a reddish ribbon for that, and then a purple ribbon for the other one to bring out the mushroom colors on that. But I'll probably have to order some. I don't really have any good fabrics for this, but one thing I could do is make some ribbon out of matching fabric. Just cut some diagonal strips, sew them together if I need to, and make ribbon that way. Another option is to sew cording. Or actually, we could probably pin this in place. Hold on. We could attach cording along the sides, along the edges here, as our finishing. Yeah, but this is just so you can see what it would look like if you used cording. Yeah, something like that. But again, the main thing is, that's how you make a cube. It's been a couple of days and I ordered some ribbon. I went with 1.5 inch just to make sure that it's proportional to the cube that I have. I probably could have gotten away with 1 inch, but I wanted that extra girth. I have no idea what I will do with these outside of this project, but never have too much ribbon, right? Alright, I did finish up the snail because I needed to take photos for the blog, and now you can see how I finished my ribbons, and I'm going to show you how I put this together. And yes, we will also talk about the feet. Okay, first the ribbon. So we have our froggle, and I've already done the first step, which is pretty easy, just like the band around the side. Pin it down. It's not pinned anywhere else. It's just pinned at the bottom. And that's it. Now, I can't give you measurements because your cube's going to be a different size, so let's show you how I got those measurements. First, while still on the spool, I'm going to pin the end of my ribbon roughly in the middle. And then I'm going to measure to the edge of my box, all the way across to the other edge of the box, and then fold it back towards the middle. And that's roughly how much you need. Okay, take the pin out, cut it to size. I already have one prepared here. Now we're gonna make a little loop. Make sure you're not making a Mobius strip by accident, just a loop. And flatten it so you have a ribbon that goes approximately to the edges. It could be a little bit more, a little bit less, whatever you want. But we're just gonna pin that in place. Okay. Now I'm going to take the ribbon again. Once again, pin it back in place. And this time do the same thing, but a little bit shorter. So however you want that ribbon to kind of loop. There's your size, right? Once you've cut that to size, we're going to again make a little loop, smoosh it down, make sure it's straight, and then pin it in place, except in slightly different spots so you're not stabbing through your previous pins. That's not going to work. Perfect. So now we have 2 layers. You could do multiple layers. I'm going to do the last one as just a little loop. So we want a little circle, and I would hold it up so that you can see how big of a circle you need. If you want a larger circle, if you want the tiny circle, whatever you decide to do. We're going to make our little circle and carefully, awkwardly reach in there and pin it. I can't really show you because it's just kind of sticking my finger in there. And this is the only pins that might be visible here, so I tried to do it closer to the center. So that it's well in there. And there you go. We got our little layered ribbon. You could, of course, have just tied a bow on it like you would a present, but this is what I did. And now they match. I thought about doing like this one in red and that one in purple to cross reference, but I ended up just having them match their respective mushrooms, and that's okay. I think they turned out pretty cute. Now, I am going to talk about the feet, but first, here's another one I made. And the reason I want to talk about this is because this is not a single piece of foam. Now, instead of the nice plasticky styrofoam that I used for the other 2, this is the much crinklier styrofoam, so I apologize in advance for my audio quality. But this is how thick it was. It was these 2 thin little sheets, right? And then I put them together to make a cube. You can see where I cut them to size. And and also these were damaged, and by damaged I mean this is where some furniture or something was packed into. So it does have dents all over that. So what I did, once I cut it down to the size that I wanted, is put the damaged sides towards the inside, right? And you can glue these in place, but instead what I did is I took the same pins that we've been using for everything else, and with the head side down, stabbed it into my styrofoam so that we have a nice sharp bit sticking out. And these pins have pretty small heads, so it's not that hard to push them into place. And with the other styrofoam, I just stabbed it into place, except make sure you line it up better than I did. And this comes right apart. It's not a big deal. Just try again until you get a nice even seam. Yeah, pretty good. Except we needed to go over a little bit more to the side. Let's try it one more time. However many times it takes. Oh yeah, that's much better. Now it's a bit even on almost all the sides. This one's not. I can trim that. I can use that as the bottom. Whatever needs to happen. Nice. And it's not glued together, but it does hold in place. Like if I'm just holding one side, the other one is fine. And when you're wrapping the fabric around, as long as you have one or both of the fabrics go past that middle line, the fabric will actually hold it in place as well. And then you're also doing that band around the sides, and you're also adding a ribbon, etc. So it's actually pretty sturdy. Like, you can't pull it apart. It has layers of fabric and pins. You don't need the glue, is all I'm saying. You can glue it, but you don't need it. Now, let me put the crinkly styrofoam away and let's talk about those feet. Now, these are what is called, I guess, jewelry box feet is the search term that I use to find them. I will link the listing that I bought these from down below so that you can get them, but they come in all different designs and shapes and such. But yeah, jewelry box feet. Now, this does come with little screws, which are meant to go into like a wooden box, not styrofoam. I'm instead going to be pinning them into place. Now, the problem with pinning them is that these holes are designed for screws, and even if they are small screws, they're definitely bigger than these pin heads. So if they just slip right off. They're not going to stay on. So instead, I'm going to hold that foot in place. So what you're going to do is take that pin and drive it in at an angle, like a 45, 50 degree angle, something like that, to make sure that the head catches on one of the edges of the hole, and then do a second pin into the same hole, but at the opposite angle so that they're both catching on the edge of that hole. Do it again in the other direction, in the second hole. And now it's actually pretty sturdy. Like, that's pretty held on there. But these also have, oops, that one stabbed through the front. Let's reposition that so I'm not stabbing myself with it. Test to make sure it's still good. Yep, okay, much better. But now we also have these side holes, and again, you want to get it at an angle so that the head of the pin catches slightly on the lip. And then in the side again. There we go. So now we have our little feet. And you just repeat that process on all four sides. Could I get this off? Absolutely. Nothing about this project is permanent. Remember, you can undo it and change it up whenever you want. But it's pretty sturdy, and when it's just standing on the bookshelf or whatever, it's gonna be fine. The other thing I've seen people do is to use beads as their little feet. This is not going to work with satin pins because that pin goes straight through the bead. It's not going to hold it in place. But if you had a pin with a larger head, I guess, and you wanted to pin it in place, that could absolutely work as little feet. You would probably want a flatter pin base, but whatever will hold that bead in place. You can get the larger crystal beads. This is like a teardrop, but that is an option. But I like these little antique feet because they're pretty cute, and they do come in a couple different designs to fit your needs. So I'm going to put the rest of these feet on, and then we can wrap things up. I made a cube. Look how cute it turned out. I kind of love him. I hope you do too. And I hope this has inspired you to try making some cubes of your own. I'm glad I picked up the ribbon. I have no idea what I'm going to do with the rest of that ribbon, but you can never have too much ribbon, right? It'll come in handy eventually. Probably. You don't be surprised if you see this finish from me more often, just because I have still a lot of styrofoam to go through. And they're easy to make. Could you blame me? The only downside I see to this is that I can't take photos of it on my workbench like I usually do with small flat items, overhead shots and pretty things. I can't do that with these. So now I gotta figure out how to take photos of them, which is a problem for future me. But for now, I am done. I do hope that if you make your own, that you tag me on Instagram or Blue Sky or whatever, message me on Discord. I don't care. I want to see it because they're cute, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I will, of course, link down below to all the materials that I used. I can't link you to styrofoam because it literally is trash. It just comes in packages all the time. I don't know what to do with it. Well, now I do, but you know what I mean. I don't know what else to do with it. So I'm gonna make cute things out of it. Thanks again to my patrons for voting for this project this month. I always let you guys vote to see what tutorials and tips and tricks and so forth that you most want to see. So be sure to check that out. And again, there is a written version of this with step-by-step photos on my website if you prefer that over video. Not to mention that there are so many more tutorials on my website than there are currently on YouTube. I am slowly wanting to go back and make videos for some of the old finishes, but we'll see. Maybe I'll make a bunch of Christmas ornaments this year so that I can video it. Point being, this turned out adorable. Oh my god. If you, again, want the pattern for either this or the snail, these two are patterns available on my Etsy. And if you want this cauldron, it's actually a free pattern available on my Ko-fi. I mean, you can tip me if you find this useful. But if you just want a cute little cauldron to use some of your variegated thread on, I got you. But whatever you decide to do, keep creating. Why am I wearing a hoodie in June in the middle of a nationwide heat wave? Because the AC is much more efficient at cooling my basement office than it is the bedroom 2 floors up where my partner is trying to sleep.